The fall. I remember them, the humans, skinny creatures, only 4 limbs. We still have statues somewhere in the dusty edges of our history hives. We disliked them at first, filled with their stupid enthusiasm for the great dark, ignoring the fears of others. Worse, never even noticing the dangers as they smiled at a universe that was trying to kill them. I miss them. The day I left their system to burn, the day they sent me home, this is what they must have felt. A voice pulled him back into the tedium of genocide. High Commander, the Venance has broken the lines at Sector 18. Our reinforcements are not ready yet. The commander nodded. Send them to Sector 17 as soon as they can move. 18 has fallen, and if I have learned anything in this cursed war, it is not to reinforce failure. He watched as the crewman grew older in front of his eyes. He kept his voice flat, compassionate, as he watched the man's scales dull and take on the edge of white that would one day, if he survived, mark him as a veteran. Are your family out there? The silence confirmed it, the tightly held pain evident in his soldier's face. I'm sorry. I can't send more men to die if I can't hold the planet. I hope they made the evacuation. He nodded the man back to his station. In his mind, he knew, almost to the minute, what was happening. Once the Venance broke the line in the system, then the moons would burn, then anything left firing from orbit. Then the feeding would begin, seeding attacks on civilian centers, followed by endless bugs born from the wreckage filling the streets. Then the bugs grew and attacked everything, even each other. Before the end, they would have killed everything that moved, and then their fucking ships would land. Some call, some pheromone would summon the bugs, and they would fight and kill each other on the path to the ships. Those that survived would become the Venance, and then they stripped what was left of the world, always leaving with more warriors and bigger fleets, and then they went looking for the next target. Sector 17. Another crewman hesitated and looked up. Sir, I have a signal. It's marked personal for you. Sir, it's from Sector 7. The crew on his bridge stirred with that addition. Sector 7. They all remembered that one. He tried to show nothing, but you don't expect ghosts to call you from the hells. He looked at his crew. Probably some damn satellite that remembers me. I probably owe them money. I'll take it in my cabin. Begin rerouting our supplies to Sector 17 and get the numbers up on the evacuation. Now. The crew returned to work as they tried to steal their people from the jaws of hell. The cabin was quiet. Just small beeping noises that he could never identify or stop. One day he was going to rip this room apart, find them, and then go after the assholes that put them there. He knew he was avoiding the huge everything. His people were dying, and now he had a call from the dead. He opened the message. It was a human. Before he could stop himself, he paused it, suddenly back in his memories. The humans had held Sector 7. The humans were Sector 7. Their beautiful, murderous worlds, their carefully cared-for predators. They had been so proud to have rebuilt it, taking all industrial production out into the openness of space and doing what they called rewilding. He had been terrified when they showed him what they had built, but he could remember the joy in the ambassador's face as he was shown an island so full of what they called snakes that no human could ever set foot on it and live. The human had told him that it was seriously cool. He could think of no other race that reveled so much in the diversity of life, even life that was happy to kill them as the humans were. Then, Sector 7 had fallen, and the humans had perished. All their work burned as another affront to the silent gods. They had insisted that he leave. They had given his people every weapon and ship design that they had ever created, and went to fight in a determined rage that still made him weep. I had watched the fleets leave. The mix of an efficient and well-built fleet combined with whatever they could throw together in the last days. So many of their people had been lost already, trying to hold the line, trying to keep the enemy far from home. They had inflicted terrible damage, but they were but one sector against a dozen. This was the end. He had been pushed onto a shuttle, handed a bunch of data spikes, and told to fuck off home. We were many systems far from the human space, and, in my youth, I thought us immortal. I felt sorry for the humans, but it never occurred to me that this would happen to us. It was like some dismal, hollow play. We hadn't sent help. We had done nothing for these people except let them die in a war that we thought far from our borders. He had stayed on the edge of their home system, hoping against hope as the human fleets had torn the Venants apart. Until the next 10 Venants fleets, grown from the stolen life of Sector 6, had arrived. Then the humans had burned their own worlds. They had told me they would leave nothing, but I didn't understand. Not until that moment. Their broken fleets fled, lost in the dark forever. Every moon, every planet exploded in a raging fire that nearly took me with it. They burned their own sun rather than let it feed the monsters. And now I had a voicemail from them. He hit the play button as he clenched himself to hear a plea for aid, some cry for help from those beautiful, doomed creatures. He would explain when he met them in the hells, assuming the bastards hadn't tamed all the demons. He recognized the human, a junior aide to the ambassador on that trip so long ago. His memory was fogged by time as he struggled for a name. It probably didn't matter. Captain, or whatever rank you hold now, I assume your people have suffered accelerated promotion, as we have. We are alive, and we are coming. Sectors 7, 3, 4, and 6 are back in our hands. We are fighting for 5 right now, and we are winning. I know you are a hell of a long way from us right now, but know this. We are coming. We are on the way. Hold your lines. I am attaching new ship designs, cheaper, faster, and better. Build them and hold. Remember that island? The one that no human could stand in without dying? Turns out it was us. Earth was Snake Island for these fuckers. Hold your line while we burn these bastards back to bedrock. I'll try and open a line to your command if we break through far enough. Yours was the only signal I could remember. The human looked tired even as he smiled from the screen. We got this. Keep your people alive and gear up. Ambassador Killian out. He had contacted his high command almost in tears that day. That message from the dead and damned had given them the one weapon that nothing can defeat. He had given them hope, that we could survive, that the humans were coming, that the Venants would fall and we would live. We lost Sector 17, then 16, but we held them at 15, and we didn't let go. Our new ships poured hell on the Venants, and then they recognized the tech, falling back in fear. We began to burn them, as the humans say, back to bedrock. Today my fleet will meet the humans at Sector 11, and we will crush the Venants from our space. The humans tell me they will fight on, seeking out the birth world of these creatures and burn it down. I didn't understand what the ambassador told me until I had time to study their history, a rare pastime in this war. They intend to raze their cities and sow their fields with salt. From his expression, I don't expect these creatures to trouble us after today. But that is for another time. He laid out his plan to the captains, those white-shelled veterans of every death, those that had followed his determination and tactics and gave a rare smile. Today the war would end. Today they would turn the horror back on the enemy. He had made it clear that he expected no survivors. If it took a battleship to kill the last of these things, then he would pay the price. This would end and he would never sail in space again. He looked at the captains, most of whom had not been around for the endless defeats. The good ones asked themselves why and acted accordingly. The rest just burned for revenge for the ones lost. He opened his comms and said all that he thought needed to be said. Fleet, arm all systems. Today we take back all we have lost and leave only the burning ghosts of those that dared take it from us. Vengeance is ours today. They fell upon the ragged remains of the once mighty Venants with a ferocity that matched their hatred, their pain, and their loss. Today the Venants would fall and never rise again.
From the human perspective, we would have won if they had found us first. We would have chewed them up and burned the very dirt they sprang from. But we were not the first. They had eaten 1,000 worlds before they met us. The very first fleet we burned was but the beginning. Then 1,000 more fell on our people and took our worlds, scum with no politics or mercy. Just a gaping hunger in space, eating everything beautiful, and... The fleet ambassador looked up at the interruption. "Sir, they are here. General quarters have been called, and..." The crewman looked him straight in the eye, all hope gone. Just the merciless humanity they had all become. "Sir, you have orders to give to the worlds. The Admiral wants me to escort you." Killian flinched at that, the worry that he might fail. His word would burn the work of thousands of years, the very home of man. He stood up slowly as the crewman stepped forward. "Sir, you must surrender your weapon." The crewman's face was as gray as the stone in his heart as he carefully pulled his pistol from its holster and left it on the desk. It would be there when he returned to his office. They weren't that cruel. As long as he gave the orders first. Send a message to Earth. Give the Xenos our intel and get them off our planet. Now. Killian watched as the Earth fought back, as his fleets and his people tore the enemy into shreds, gleefully burning their twice-damned ships, killing the seeds within. They didn't bother with the warrior class. That was for later. The fleet wanted to kill the infection before it reached home. So many ships. The Venants panicked, fucking up even more than their decision to fight here, to try and kill Earth. Earth with its billions of defenders. He almost felt hope for a brief moment, as their center ship cracked and exploded, and another generation of the Venants were cast into the vacuum to die choking. He smiled at the sight. He heard the nav officer first, standing not 2 meters away and speaking to the admiral. "Sir, I have incoming enemy fleets." The man scrambled with his sensors, trying to pin down the invaders. Then he stopped and went silent for a moment. The admiral snapped at him. "From where? I need more than that, for fuck's sake." The nav officer turned to the admiral and saluted. "From everywhere." He pulled himself together. "Sir, I count 12 full fleets arriving. Signals say more are behind them." The admiral shrank back in his chair. The knowledge that what they had expected to happen didn't help. He looked at the civilian, the one whose words were cursed. In a voice that came from the very depths of hell itself, he repeated the only phrase left to him. "Ambassador, I can no longer defend this system. You need to assume civilian control and prevent the enemy from using our people as food. I will engage until you have achieved your objectives. I hope someone out there will forgive us because I can't." At that, he returned to the battle. Killian turned to the nav officer and nodded. "You are excused. I need to do the biosecurity before these orders are released. Stand aside." He was expecting reluctance, some military refusal to admit defeat. Instead, it was pity in the man's eyes as he stood back, surrendering his post. He began inputting the codes even as the ship checked his credentials back to his childhood and beyond. His mind was now a dark tunnel screaming for the revenge of humanity, no longer a person, just a mission. A little death with his burning scythe. Credentials accepted, awaiting orders. Jupiter Station, Rain of Fire, confirmed. Saturn Ring Stations, Rain of Fire, confirmed. Uranus Orbital, Rain of Fire, confirmed. Neptune Arcology, Rain of Fire, confirmed. Mars Nation, Rain of Fire, confirmed. His voice was failing, his throat dry. The nav officer passed him some water. The list continued. Europa Science Colony, Rain of Fire, confirmed. Luna Annex, Rain of Fire, confirmed. The bridge had fallen silent as they heard his every word. He reached the end of the list, the command they had fought against so hard and would damn him for eternity. Earth, Rain of Fire, Urban, confirmed. In front of him flashed a single word from each one of the finest works mankind had ever built, the hopes and lives of billions. Executing. The admiral pulled what was left of the fleets together before the Rain of Fire began and headed for Sector 1, hidden, dark, and filled with the crying refugees from all the nations of Earth. An unhappy place. One by one, the colonies waited until the enemy tried to seed their worlds and habitats, and one by one they exploded and burned the ships along with the life so carefully maintained. Many humans had stayed for this moment of revenge, preferring to die than see everything lost for nothing. The ambassador sat alone and reported. He wasn't even sure who he was reporting to anymore. The future, if they had one. Earth is different. We have pulled back to small cities with no population pressure. It had become what we always dreamed it should be. Sure, we have tigers in London, but that is a small price to pay. We have built walls to keep them safe from us and treasured the first mammoths to march across Siberia. It wasn't perfect, but it's home. Was home. I blew up the cities. It was too much to ask me to hurt the animals. We are the last humans alive in our system. For now. Humanity must live amongst the broken rocks and dead space for a while until we can destroy this evil. Farewell, Earth. now lost to the sight of the remains of Earth fleet as it fled. All the security protocols invented by the devious engineers and soldiers of Earth space began attacking. Every Venance fleet was met with sudden solar flares, exploding moons, burning worlds. A fitting but pointless endeavor. The victorious enemy sat above Earth itself, finally. The seeding began. Millions of eggs rained down on Earth, ready to hatch and devour all. The rats were waiting. Earth had been engineered for 300 years to rebuild what had been so carelessly thrown away, with no need for food from the soil, with no reason to even stay on the planet if you wished to travel. Earth had become a wild place, overseen and loved but not exploited. After much discussion, it had been decided to revive any animal that had coexisted with mankind. No dinosaurs, but the megafauna that we had probably eaten. And the seas, they would be returned to their proper wealth. The Venance rained 1 billion eggs into our seas, and not one made it to adulthood. The dolphins danced as they hunted the scuttling strangers, sharing the feast with their orca cousins. The bugs poured out upon the plains of Argentina and met the ants and termites, older, wiser, and better armed. Dragged beneath the ground, they fed a new generation. The dispossessed pigeons of London wrought havoc among the newcomers, as did the seagulls exiled from the coastal towns. The earth was undefended, but never unarmed. The wolf packs in Canada howled as a pack of strangers tried to move across its territory and hunted them slowly to inevitable death. The elk kicked them apart. The giant sloth defended its burrow with 9-inch bladed paws. The black bears preferred them to salmon. The ships of the despised enemy landed and released their call to deathly silence. One ship offended a herd of elephants in Marseille and was crushed for the offense. The Varants took orbit and tried again, stalled by their own instincts. Eggs fell and the earth ate them. What the wasps did is best left unrecorded. 3 years in space. Triage is now a curse word, and we try and keep our people alive. Without allies or hope, we are a dead thing that just hasn't stopped moving yet. Today we take back Earth and bury our dead. Or we die and bring this to its bitter end. The fleet from the remnant of Earth arrived in the home system expecting to see nothing but the enemy. The ambassador had open comms. "Earth lives, it's still green." My God, they haven't taken it. The admiral is calling in everyone. We live, we live. 20 months later, mankind had re-established the first of their cities and begun rebuilding the system. The Varants were now terrified of the place, so they stayed away. Apparently, Earth had eaten 20 generations of its people. We have begun building up the fleet. With our world secure, we are not the same people. We are human again, and we are pissed. I have been trying to get in touch with some of our old friends. The Xenos anyway. We attack Sector 6 tomorrow and hopefully secure our flank. I know this is the beginning of the end for these things. Perhaps we can bring some hope into this afflicted galaxy, for Earth.